To say prayers before the meeting. Thank you.
Let's just bow our heads as we pray. Father God, we thank you for this meeting. We thank you for this council meeting, and we pray that as we reflect on the Queen and her life of service, that you would help each of us to recognise that we are here to serve the community. And so, Father, we pray for this meeting that we will hold that in mind. We pray for King Charles. We pray for him and his family as he mourns the loss of his mother. And Lord, we also pray for the late Councillor John Wing and his family and friends. May they know your peace and comfort. We pray these prayers in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay, thank you very much and welcome everybody. Can I welcome any public and press and people that might be watching online? Can I ask councillors to be seated and allocated? Oh, hang on. Can I? Shall I just start again? Can I please remind councillors to turn the microphones on while they're speaking and turn them off again when finished, otherwise they'll not be heard on the broadcast. Okay, so have I got any apologies for absence? No. Okay, declarations of interest. Can I ask councillors to declare their interest in the items on the agenda, and can I remind councillors that they should declare the type of interest they have, the agenda item and reference in question, and the reason they have an interest. Okay, so have any declarations of interest? Okay, so item 3 is a resolution of condolence for Her late Majesty. Oh, sorry. Not doing very well tonight, am I? Okay, so sorry, backtrack to item 2. Minutes of the last meeting held on the 22nd of June and the 8th of September. Can we agree the meeting on the 22nd of June as a true record? Agreed. Okay. You certainly can.
Councillor Hugo promised to make a response to me regarding the work on the seafront at Anchor's Home and what the consultants have discovered. I don't seem to have received that yet. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sure that'll be rectified, won't it, Councillor Hugo? Thank you. Okay, and can we agree the meeting held on the 8th of September as a true and correct record?
Move that.
Okay, thank you. So item 3 is a resolution of condolence for Her late Majesty the Queen Elizabeth, and I believe that Councillor Williams is moving.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Council, on behalf of the people of Blackpool, expresses its profound sorrow on the passing of Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II and extends its deepest sympathy to His Majesty King Charles III and to the members of the royal family in their loss. That is a resolution of the Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams, and I do believe it's Councillor Williams will be seconding that.
I'm very happy and saddened to approve of that, Lady Mayor. Second it, sorry.
Okay. I do believe if we're going to stand now for a minute's... Oh, sorry. Shall we vote on that? Thank you. All in favour? Okay, thank you. We'll just stand for a moment's silence. Okay, thank you, everybody. Okay, thank you. Item 4, a resolution of condolence for the late Councillor John Wing, and I believe it's Councillor Vic Scott that's going to move it.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. Yes, I propose a resolution of condolence for the late Councillor John Wing, and to say a few words.
Okay, do you want to say them now then?
Oh, I thought it was been seconded.
Do you want to second it then?
You move the motion and then speak and then it's seconded afterwards.
All right. Do you want to second?
No, Councillor Scott needs to move the motion.
Oh, sorry, you need to move the motion.
Yes, I move the motion.
Then he's got his 5 minutes, he's got his time to speak.
Sure. Yeah, yes, okay. Bernard John Wing was born in Blackpool on August 13, 1953. He was the younger sibling to Pat. John, or Bernie, as I would call him, if we had a disagreement, was Blackpool through and through, and was very protective of his hometown. John wasn't cut out for school and would often play truant and get into innocent mischief with his friends. He was asked to leave Montgomery School early because he was way ahead of the curriculum. If you believe that, then you believe anything. John left school and got a job at Owen and Owens on Bankgate Street, where he met his future wife Louise, or Lulu, who he affectionately called her. She wasn't interested at first, but eventually gave in, and they courted for 8 years until he finally popped the question. They were together for over 50 years and happily married for over 40 of them. John moved on from Owens to become a manager with the co-op, a position which saw him travel throughout Lancashire. Whilst with the co-op, he attended a training course at Wadham College, which was then part of the famous university campus. John would often bring it up in conversation that he had once attended Oxford. John eventually left the co-op, and with Louise, they took the plunge into running their own business. They ran various businesses throughout the town, most notably Country Fresh greengrocers on Whitegate Drive, Peaches and Pears in Staining, and finally a post office and newsagents at Normos. As we all know, working for yourself is hard work. There's no sick pay or holiday pay, and John and Louise would regularly work 7 days a week, often getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and just having Christmas Day off to put their feet up. Their philosophy was that they could travel the world upon their retirement and spend time in their beloved garden. As time went by, John and Louise welcomed Lucinda into the world, who was a chip off the old block with a work ethic. They wanted the best for Lucy, who attended Elmsley and Arnold schools before moving on to St Andrews University. Lucy now holds a top job with Network Rail, is a local councillor and has been approached to be an MP. And is studying for her 5th degree. John and Louise were so proud of her achievements. Later on in life, when they sold the post office and newsagents, they were able to enjoy a better work-life balance. They bought a static caravan in the Lake District, and the family, including their 2 dogs, would often spend idyllic weekends at Windermere. John even bought a boat, but on one trip, he didn't check the fuel gauge and they ran out of fuel in the middle of Lake Windermere. John loved meeting people, and it seemed so apt that his last venture in business was to buy a taxi. He loved chatting to people as he drove them to Manchester Airport or around the Fylde coast. It was around this time that we bought a house and moved in next door to John and Louise, and we couldn't have asked for better neighbours. We all became good friends. I arrived home one day to find a big rhododendron up the drive and a thank you note for putting up with the noise during their house extension. They were just lovely people, a lovely couple. We were both keen gardeners, and I would often catch John spying over the fence to see what new plants I had bought. We would often sit on the wall and put the world to rights, something I missed dearly. I knew that John was involved with a local party, and he approached me one day, about 5 weeks before the election, asking if I would be interested in running for council, as his running colleague had to drop out through illness. I myself had just recovered from cancer, but I was very interested in local politics, so I said yes. The next few weeks we campaigned hard. And with us, being two Bispham boys, we knew the area like the back of our hands, and we used that as a platform. And hey-ho, it worked, and we got elected, so you have John to blame for my presence in the chamber. We started out as councillors like a house on fire. I knew that John had some breathing issues, but I didn't know how bad it was until one day he sat me down and told me. I was gutted and lost for words. Idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. I looked it up on the internet that night, and it wasn't good reading, and there was no cure. We never spoke about it again. John loved his council work and was a people's person. We regularly discussed what plans we had for the ward. Before the pandemic struck, John's daughter had organised their first holiday abroad on a cruise liner. They enjoyed it so much he was already planning his next one as soon as they got back. Lucy also took him to see Fleetwood Mac at Wembley. The pandemic struck and the way we used to go about our daily lives was turned on its head. John gave his all to join the virtual meetings until it was no longer possible due to his breathing difficulties. John had so many plans for retirement, it was heartbreaking to see him struggle. The unused golf clubs in the garage, no longer being able to potter about in his beloved garden and get out and meet residents in the ward. John did get to see his daughter walk down the aisle in August and was over the moon that he was to become a granddad in December. John was a loving, caring man. I can honestly say that in the relatively short time that I knew him, he was one of the best. What you'd call one of life's good guys. Good night. God bless Councillor John Wing.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. That was a lovely tribute. Thank you. Councillor Taylor, are you seconding?
Madam Mayor, I wish on behalf of all my colleagues to second this resolution of condolence to the family and friends of Councillor Wing on his sad death. I didn't know Councillor Wing well, but I did know of the commitment he shared with all of us in this chamber for the welfare of the people of this town. So we send to all those who shared his life our very best wishes now and for the future. I second.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Okay, can we just vote on the resolution? Any other speakers? Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. As has been mentioned, I'm afraid a number of us didn't get to know John that well. But when we met him, he was a gentleman and it was a pleasure to talk to. Unfortunately, COVID hit before most of us got to know him. But we do, I think, all appreciate that he attended the online meetings whenever he could and joined with us as best he could. So on behalf of our group, may I offer condolences to family and friends and colleagues of Councillor Wing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Any further speakers? Okay, can we vote on the motion? All in favour? Okay, that's carried. We'll just stand for a minute silence. Thank you, councillors. Item 5, announcements. I don't have any formal announcements. I'd just like to thank council and officers and councillors today for Blackpool Council's response since the late Queen's passing. Obviously, things are always put in place, but there are things that we don't foresee. And over the weekend, after the Queen died, how hard everybody worked, and I had the privilege to read the acclamation, and I was extremely proud of that. But I'd like to just thank all councillors in the office for the support. Also, I've been asked to pass on thanks from, I was going to say Dame Elaine then, because that's how I know her, Elaine Smith. She emailed me to thank everybody for the lovely service. She's so proud and dedicated to receiving the Blackpool Medal, and she just wanted me to pass on thanks to us all, councillors and officers. Okay, so if we just move on to item 6, which is the executive reports. Yes. Yes. Go on, Councillor.
Lady Mayor, thank you. I had the privilege of calling the Queen my boss for 22 years. And as Untitled Champion for Blackpool Council, I would like to send our condolences from Blackpool veterans to His Majesty and family. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Okay, so item 6, executive reports. Okay, so we've got the corporate portfolio, and I do believe it's Councillor Williams that's presenting.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to present the report and answer questions. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll go page by page. Formally, you don't need to. I don't need to be confused anymore. Okay, page 9. Councillor Galley.
Forgive me, Madam Mayor. I couldn't remember if it's Madam Mayor or
It's
Lady.
Madam.
Thank you. Brilliant.
I'm not precious.
I thought I didn't want to go for the entire meeting calling you by the wrong title. It was really just picking up on the cost of living crisis, Madam Mayor. Obviously, we are all familiar with the challenges this puts upon everybody, especially the poorest residents. And we also know partly some of the reasons behind what's driven it in terms of the energy costs and so forth, and the impacts that will have. Laterally thinking, as I often do with these sorts of challenges in terms of what the solutions are, I remember when we voted for the climate change agenda and a strategy, Madam Mayor, and one of the things that we talked about then was this real potential investment into renewable energy in Blackpool. We've all been out on the promenade and anywhere on the Fylde and been exposed to wind. We have 2 estuaries either side of us. Moving forwards, and this won't just be a short-term challenge as we unlock ourselves away from various dictatorships around the world in terms of where we get our energy from. And we see different challenges or different alternatives being imposed potentially upon the Fylde, which nobody's keen on. I think there's a real opportunity for us as a council and through the climate change agenda, but to move into the potential and lead on energy production using the amount of wind that we have, and really lead on what the best types of urban technology is for wind production, energy production through wind. It's still so unknown when you go to explore what is the right gadget or the right technology in the right space. I feel if we lead on that, not only will we be able to produce our own energy, or certainly a fair amount of it, which will hopefully be able to be sold back into to the people of the town at a certain price that's lower than the costs that we're finding elsewhere, but ultimately it will send out a really strong message about where we see the future of energy production on the Fylde, and that can only be a good thing for the people, not just now, but for generations to come.
Thank you, Councillor Galley. Any more on page 9? Okay, page 10. Yeah, was it just Councillor Mitchell? Was it just?
I assume the leader writes these reports, and regarding the Household Support Fund, she states that, for context, the £1.7 million of funding represents 47p per week per head of the population. I'm not sure what context that's supposed to be, but it avoids mentioning 99% of the additional support the government is providing to households and businesses to help with the rising cost of living. So to provide further context, earlier this year there was £150 off council tax funded by the government, which is bragged about later in the reports, £400 off energy bills starting next month, and it's today been confirmed people not responsible for their bills or living in park homes will be eligible too. £650 will be paid to more than 8 million low-income households, £300 for pensioners, additional support for those with disabilities. The UC taper rate was reduced, putting £1,000 into pockets of hard-working families, and the PM recently announced that the energy cap will be put in place at 2.5k for the average household, reducing the impact of rising international energy prices by thousands of pounds. Businesses will also get support with their bills cap too. The 1.7 million is to help those in the most need in the short term. It is not the whole story and is not for the whole population. I'm not sure what context you were providing.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Anybody else on page 10? Page 11? Yeah. Okay, Councillor Mitchell. Oh, Councillor Gallis, sorry, and then Councillor Mitchell, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It was obviously just a response to the severe financial challenges ahead of us. Those on the Audit Committee will be aware of what's been playing itself out at Slough Council, a very similar size authority to ourselves in terms of the population. And the reason I wanted to flag it up tonight is that one of the concerns that you can have when you deal with trying to squeeze a budget to deliver services is that you could almost find yourself going down or the temptation of going down a Slough route, which is to go for some very short-term approaches in terms of your skill base, the reliance on contractors and so forth, and private firms to deliver some of those services, which ultimately leads to higher costs and, as Slough found out, an exhausted workforce. And so one of the things that I wanted to just, and I know our officers are in a slightly different place to where Slough was because of the leadership that we've been working towards, but it's absolutely crucial though that we don't go for some short-term fixes as we manage that budget, and to remember our long-term strategies. Alongside that, looking at where our income comes from, around 60 odd million now comes from council tax, and one of the suggestions that I would put in here is that we start to link our housing policy next to our council tax return. So if we're going to invest in an area, we can suddenly identify what the likely council tax returns are going to be, and therefore we can start to add to that 60 odd million. Business rates, we're around 19 million plus top up at 23. So I would say outside of job growth, I would target our council tax growth, but crucially link it into our housing policy, because then it starts to become a wider invest to grow a scheme, and rather than just an invest to save scheme. And I think that will support our housing portfolio holder as well in some of the conversations he must be having. So I guess really it's how we manage that challenge is to constantly remind ourselves of the pitfalls of being too short-term in the way we balance those books.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Galley. Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you. Regarding the financial challenges, you have stated that by adding up the cuts from each year since 2011 to 2012, you get to 1.4 billion. This is an improvement on what's usually stated, and I'm glad you're at least starting to say that it is accumulated and not just a £1.4 billion cut. But this is still wrong. You have multiple times in this council not said that it's accumulated. I can find you the clip if you want. I'm not going to repeat my speech from the last council meeting, but if you'd like to listen to me call this calculation bananas and provide a definition of a cut versus a budget gap, then you can head to my Facebook page to have another listen. Don't forget to follow and leave a like. In response to that speech...
Please.
In response to that speech, you patronisingly told me to go and speak to the Director of Finance, and you didn't want to get into it, but you were pretty sure you stood by the figures. A recurring theme with this Labour group, who keep telling me they don't want to get bogged down by facts, figures and percentages, which is quite concerning when they're supposed to be running the town and looking after our finances, but not surprising when we hear that additional support is being required from the National Party. I did meet with the Finance Officer though, and he prepared a report on funding since the inception of Blackpool Council. I've brought the report, and it quite clearly states that central government funding cuts simply of 52.4 million and compounded 370 million, significantly less than the 1.4 billion in cuts he quotes, which is actually made up of additional pressures, inflation, etc., etc. And it is worth noting at this point that there are budget pressures every year of the Council's existence in the report, including under the Labour governments from 98 to 2010. I suggest you go and speak to the Director of Finance.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mitchell. Thank you. Any more on page 11? Sorry. Okay. Page 12. Okay, Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. On page 12, the second paragraph, nationally there is a soaring demand for child protection services and adult social care provision, and the rising costs of providing such care, creating a burden on the current levels of local taxation and government funding struggle to meet. Now, these services we used to have in-house, as you're all well aware of, children's care, and we had children's homes. Rather than pour money into paying unscrupulous landlords to build a portfolio of property, have you never thought of having like an arm's length company like we've got with other companies set up to oversee a property portfolio for the housing of children and adult social care? That way we build up a portfolio in-house with council property to cut down costs, and we won't be paying out over-the-top fees to care for these people.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Scott. Anybody else on page 12? No. Okay, page 13. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to talk about the Levelling Up Fund. The government's 12-point Levelling Up mission, it provides a wide range of opportunities for local authorities to improve their economic standing and development. It also provides extra support to improve the lives of communities and local neighbourhoods. And that's where I think that Blackpool have missed a couple of important points which the government required. Once again, the main focus of Blackpool's bid is the town centre, an oasis of square concrete blocks, whilst the surrounding areas are some of the worst examples of neglect and deprivation. One of the priority aims of the funding is to boost productivity, pay, jobs and living standards by growing the private sector. I don't see this being met in this council's plans, nor have you addressed the growing number of serious crimes that are occurring in the town, which is another of the government's delivery priorities. The new multi-university is an interesting project, but it's our primary and junior schools which are part of a nationally recognised low-level achievement in maths, reading and English. That need more financial support, which is also catered for in the funding guidelines, but not in the council's bid. Developing the old main post office is great news, but why another hotel when we have brand new supposedly 5-star accommodation still unfinished, looking like a carbuncle on the prom and likely to remain that way? And we lent the money to build it. As for bidding to improve bus and transport services, hasn't enough been spent on new tram tracks, new buses and bus zones already? Or is the council long-term plan to ban cars from the town centre completely? I sincerely hope before the council buy more electric buses that they also give some thought and comparison to hydrogen power. Because the experts tell us that battery cars, the batteries fail eventually. More cobalt has to be dug up out of the ground by child labour. And when those batteries fail in your car, you're going to have to fork out a good 20 grand to get another one. Hydrogen is absolutely clean. In each example of the Council's future development plans, the only people to financially benefit initially will be the outside contractors, the army of consultants and material suppliers, architects, surveyors and non-Blackpool workers. However, one of the most important aspects of the levelling up to-do list is to restore a sense of community, local pride and belonging. It's up to the government assessors and the people of Blackpool to decide if this council consider it to be an important part of their plans.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions on page 13? Councillor Mitchell? Martin, sorry.
Thank you. I see the leader has acknowledged that the management of the Sandcastle Water Park has been handed to Merlin Enterprises. This marks a change from the last time I brought up this subject, when she declined to even admit that a tendering exercise had taken place. Would you care to answer as to whether only one tender was received? Does she believe that tendering exercises should take place with minimum publicity? Or does she share my view that tendering exercises should encourage maximum participation, the whole point being to get bidders to compete against one another, to give the council the best possible deal? And realising the £900,000 dividend that Sandcastle paid to the council this year and its extraordinary success as a visitor attraction, what kind of success does she think that the Sandcastle has lacked up to now?
Thank you. Any further questions? Can you just repeat that, please, Councillor Mitchell? I don't think the leader...
Realising the £900,000 dividend the Sandcastle paid to the council and its extraordinary success as a visitor attraction, what kind of success does she think that the Sandcastle has lacked up to now?
Right, thank you. Thank you. We don't shout across the chamber, councillors. Did you get that, Councillor Williams? Yeah, okay, thank you. Any questions on page 14? Okay,
Mine isn't a question, Madam Mayor, it really is an observation. It's on the shared prosperity funding that I identify multiply numeracy programme of £770,000 via the Adult Community Family Learning Team. I think that's a fantastic initiative. Very pleased to read that it's there. Numeracy is obviously an essential skill to learn, and along with English are the two main things you need to go through life. And if they can gain any more money to go into another scheme like that, you've got my support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clapham. Councillor Bradley Mitchell.
Thank you. With reference to the demand for the Levelling Up Fund, Blackpool Council have been given top priority for any bids, and it is only the lack of a strong enough bid put forward by Labour that stopped Blackpool being awarded funding in the first round or would preclude any funding from the second. And I'm not sure what basis there is for the throwaway line in a council report that levelling up is slipping down the government's agenda. The whole report is filled with grants and funding for Blackpool provided by the government, which doesn't get acknowledged in the reports. Just the ones on today's agenda are the Levelling Up Fund, the Shared Prosperity Fund, Talbot Gateway, the Town Deal, the Enterprise Zone, Revo Sports Village, the Edge, the Illuminations, Multiversity, Central Development, Abingdon Street Market, Hounds Hill, Coastal Protection Scheme, etc., etc. What basis is there for putting this kind of propaganda in a council report?
Thank you. Page 14, any further? Okay, page 15. Page 15, any questions? Okay, sorry, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to relate just very quickly, if I may, Madam Mayor, to my colleague Councillor Mitchell and the Sandcastle. Something very disturbing came to my attention when they were having a board meeting, that our legal representative at the time, and I'll tell the Chief Executive that was, disclosed full financial details for the outgoing manager, director, which is highly irregular. Those details are personal and private. Some of the board members of the Sandcastle are not elected members. They're private individuals. And it was our legal team, one of our legal team, that divulged those figures. So I'll leave that for now. But what I really want to talk about on this page is Debenhams. We were told at the last council meeting that we're waiting for lawyers. They're dragging their feet. Have John Lewis not signed the contract yet? Now it seems that we've got options. There's more than one person wants to, or more than one company wants to come into Debenhams, and we're holding back on that. So we're not waiting for the lawyers to get ready. It says here that it's a once-in-a-generation opportunity, so you need to get it right. You do. You do need to get it right. Yeah. You've been saying that for a year and a half.
Thank you. Right. Any further questions? Page 15. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, just a clarification really on the last paragraph about council tax collection. It says the rate at the end of July this year was roughly a third, which is the same position as it was this time last year. Is that a third of the total amount, or is that a third of what was amassed up to that point?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Page 16. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. It's about the switch on and the tickets. I would like to know, I've been told that every single Labour councillor who attended the switch on paid for their ticket and, of course, had the privilege of using the VIP area. And they also had invited, yes, they did. It's on social media, I've seen it. We had people there. Anyway, I also believe that guests were invited by Labour councillors. And did they pay for their guest tickets as well? The other question is, none of my group were informed that tickets were available or how to apply for them. Can you tell me why that was? Thank you.
Further questions on page 16? Okay, page 17. Any questions on page 17? General questions? Any general questions on Councillor Burgess?
Madam Mayor, it's just a comment really of thank you about the libraries on page 17. That as Merside councillors, myself and Councillor Hutton would like to thank libraries, UCLan Architects, Left Coast and most of all the local volunteers for the outstanding work that was done to bring the Wash Your Words Library Laundry project off the drawing board and into reality. Even I enjoyed getting hands-on, taking down walls, lifting off flooring, painting. And since then, I have taken part in the workshops with Filed Repair Cafe, and even having a library card literally saved my bacon when my printer broke down. So I'd like to announce the library grand opening on Friday the 23rd of September. Obviously, there's some kind of teething problems with the laundry, and we could do with assurance that it's resolved and an update on the grand opening. But I would wholeheartedly encourage residents, young and old, to use the facility because it's absolutely marvellous. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burgess. Any further general questions? Okay, so I've got Councillor Williams. Okay. Yes, sorry, yeah, Councillor Williams.
Yeah, it's about Aberdeen Street Market. Once again, we're overspent and under-delivering. Why do we get these costs wrong? And why every project we do is overspent and behind schedule? And which brings me to the edge, as we're calling it, what I call the Flatiron building, which is, of course, Stanley Buildings, as we've always known it. I understand from a brief statement it's going to be a start-up area for new businesses, etc., etc. But it's costing £5 million to refurbish this building. What's the revenue stream? How will we get the £5 million back? Will we make a profit? And do we have any tenants waiting to go in? Thank you, Ed.
Thank you. I do apologise. I did see Councillor Walsh, but there's somebody on the back I didn't. Was it you, Councillor Robertson? Sorry. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. It's more of an observation, if I can, please, in relationship to trying to tie everything up. They mentioned before about the cuts of 1.4 million, but we've already had a spend of 1.2 million. And when you look at the likes of Liverpool 1, that was constructed for 960 million, with 170 stores and services, the second largest retail park in the northwest next to the Trafford Centre. We've already spent 1.2 million. But when you look, there's scaffolding on the Winter Gardens, there's broken windows at Debenhams that we currently own. Councillor Mark Smith, as part of Rejuvenation and Business, is aware of that. We've still not done anything with that. The graffiti on the new hotel, the smashed windows on the new hotel. So for £1.2 million that we've already spent, and we're now going into our second billion, folks, our second billion, we still lead with no positive changes to employment, social deprivation, health outcomes, etc. It's time for change.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Councillor Robertson. You've got Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. Lady Mayor, I'd just like to point out to the Council that on Monday, I had some guests staying with me, and they were veterans. On Monday, we decided to take a walk along the promenade on Monday evening, and I counted 12 beggars begging on the street. I normally go along the coast side of the promenade on my own when I go for my jogs. But on Monday, I actually walked down the actual side of the buildings, and they were camping in the doorways on the promenade. It was disgusting to see, and it should be sorted out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Councillor Scott, speak quickly. We're running out of time.
Yes, thank you, Lady Mayor. I just want to bring up the old Savoy Bowl building, which was Brannigan's, and the scaffolding that's been up for, I don't know, 5-6 years, maybe. What is the progress with that? Why it's a complete eyesore. And I believe now that they're like they're putting plywood down the bottom as though it's like a permanent fixture and putting paintings on it. Why? I mean, it's a complete eyesore on the seafront. Why is it like that? And why is it taking so long? Or what is the issue? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Williams to respond. Thank you.
This is a long time ago, Councillor Galley. I don't remember the question was. I agree with you and what you expounded, and interestingly enough, there was the symposium last week about ethically powered energy, organised by Tony Doyle's done an amazing job with that. So I agree with all of that proposition, and rather you than your government, which is obviously taking a rather different tack in terms of not supporting cheaper renewables and investing in fossil fuels, etc. Councillor Mitchell, I'm not quite sure how to respond to this, because I don't think that you're daft in any way at all. But you simply cannot maintain a position whereby, as you'll understand, that you, in addition to, you mentioned the actual physical cuts, which you acknowledge finally, but in addition to that, inflation, but strain on service, increase in services. We've assumed a public health department of 18 million, children's centres, widening concessionary fares, council tax reduction scheme, social welfare fund, growth and prosperity team. The government council are no longer funded for their debt. All of that is in addition, because it's been taken out of the government funding, and where you have, we can argue cuts, gaps, but where there are gaps, there will need to be cuts, and it's with the inevitable consequence. So, Councillor Galley. Short-term fixes, we will be sticking with the long-term strategy and maintaining with that, and obviously that work will go on through audit, your insight into that and support. The one point, Councillor Mitchell, again, it's pretty similar on a theme, really, isn't it? And I'm not quite sure why there isn't this understanding, this simplistic notion of, but failure to actually acknowledge what is the reality of the situation, the pressures of increased services, all of those that I've gone through before, and the cuts. 15 billion has been in the last 10 years from councils in this country, and Blackpool Council has been one of the most severely affected. It's, you know, these are, I'm not making these figures up. These are, you know, I think it's only you who seem to not really understand the arithmetic and the impact that this has on the town. Councillor Scott, children's social care and adult social care, well, we have looked and considered it. I think what really needs to be done is the government needs to get a grip of this area, proper funding and regulation to prevent this exploitation, really, of children in the social care system. The report that's come out, hopefully government will now take notice of that. Councillor Williams, not able to deliver town centre focus. Well, have a word with your government in terms of levelling up. If we're only able to put in funding for heritage town centres and highways, that's where we're limited to. So I'm not sure where schools and crime, but maybe if you have a word and see if they can add it into it, that's great. That would, and then we'd bid for it. And also in relation to the outer areas, to the master plans, the South Shore master plan, if you remember, that was refused in one of the funding rounds. We've went out and got that funding to ensure that that work is done. That's not come from central government. It's not their priority, or it would be in the levelling up. And then the Edge, it's an amazing building. The money that's going into it isn't just a refurbishment. It is to ensure that that property, a beautiful property, part of our heritage, remains standing. Tenants, there's been a lot of interest in it, and I'm sure Councillor Smith can let you know the details of that. The Sandcastle, have I missed a page? Maybe not. The Sandcastle, Councillor Taylor answered that question. I don't really understand again the issue with this, because we followed a system that is mandated, that we have to follow. It was advertised on the system. Almost a year ago, John Childs, Managing Director, expressed his desire to leave. We've considered the options and felt that this, you know, the managing agent, which will all be for the same cost, and we anticipate will be run successfully. You know, having the second biggest attraction running company in the world with all that wealth and expertise. So, yeah, I don't anticipate that there will be any issues. Hopefully, the Sandcastle will continue to go from strength to strength. And that is not in any way to decry. I think, you know, John did an amazing job with Sandcastle, and I've said that in this chamber before. Councillor Clapham, yes, I agree. Really positive and exciting stuff. Councillor Mitchell, I think you'd asked about what the point was, or what we're trying to make up, and about the levelling up. Well, if your government is making as a priority cutting bonuses to, you know, to the wealthiest, there isn't much levelling up going up there. And all the money that you're saying is being put into the cost of living crisis has done nothing to go towards the inequalities. I appreciate you not like my answer, but if you could, you know, at least do the courtesy of looking at me when I'm responding. So I think, you know, we are continuing in the midst of those levelling up discussions, but as long as the priority of this government is to ensure that the richest get richer and is not going to solve the inequalities of the most vulnerable. It's true. It's true. We're not just saying it. If you've seen the NHS leaders have written to the government, to the Chancellor, setting out their concerns that this cost of living crisis is going to turn into a public health crisis, and their concerns because nothing is being done to alter those inequalities. Sorry, losing mine. Where was I? Councillor Williams, you've done that. Oh no, where was I? Sorry. Right, I'm on that page. The Sandcastle again, Debenhams. Yeah, I know, and I'm not going to bet on my life or the life of my loved ones upon it, but 3 weeks' time there will be an announcement and it will be worth waiting for. Councillor Scott, it is a total amount. Councillor, I'm trying to speed up because I know I'm going to get the sign. Councillor Williams, tickets. It came about because it went out on the council website that said the golden tickets were available, and we asked. That was it. So keep an eye on the council website is a tip. Councillor Bidess, libraries, yeah, brilliant. I will be there on Friday, and I will certainly be encouraging my eldest daughter to take use of the laundrette facilities for a change. Councillor Williams, what was that one? Why costs wrong? The costs aren't wrong. In relation to the Abingdon Street Market, it was slightly more, came in more, the tender, but with managing is within 10% of what was originally, and it will be dealt with within that balance. I can let you have the details, the financial figures, but it's not a massive overspend by any means, as I say, within 10%. And none of the others are. The tram line is on budget. And we can give you a synopsis of all of those. So I do wish you'd base your questions in reality rather than just wild speculation. And Councillor Walsh, yeah, it is a time for change in government. Because until proper steps is taken to resolve those inequalities, and I'm not just talking about paying 400 or 150 quid. It's you're talking about investing in people. People deserve the right to proper jobs, well paid, and instead of spending money on fossil fuels, investing in insulation and green energy, and ensuring that good jobs comes to this town. Councillor Robertson, I think that's more of a question for Councillor Campbell. I'm sure she can respond to that. And Councillor Scott Brannigan's, I can get you some information, let you know about that. I don't have that detail, but I'm sure we can find out to why and what stage that's up to. Have I missed anything?
Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Councillor Williams. Okay, so we move on to the People's Portfolio, and I believe it's Councillor Hobson to present the report.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't think you gave Councillor Robertson a response regarding the beggars that he saw when he was out with the veterans.
I did. I said that Councillor Campbell
will
be
sorry.
able to respond.
It comes under Councillor Campbell's portfolio, so she'll do it.
She'll respond, and yeah, okay.
Not now.
Do you want to do it now or later?
Do you want to do it when we come to
do it in your bit? Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll don't worry. We won't forget. Okay. So the People's Portfolio, Councillor Hobson to present.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. Happy to present the report and take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving swiftly on page 19, questions. Councillor Callow.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. If I can just turn to the last paragraph regarding vaccination for COVID-19. Now, everybody here knows I'm a dinosaur, but I will just explain what happened to me. Well, yesterday I went along, I thought I'll go and get my jab. So I went along to the car park, situated near the old ambulance station. I was there with a number of people, but there was no sign to say that they weren't open. So we were all hanging about, and one gentleman said he'd got an appointment. So in the end, we all just left. I phoned my GP, who said that they were doing flu jabs, but not COVID. But there was a temporary COVID van going around Blackpool. So I went on to 119 today, and it's just absolutely useless for vulnerable elderly people, because all it keeps telling you to do is to go on to www something to find out where the next temporary COVID jab centre is. And that is not good enough. We've got vulnerable people out there in Blackpool who urgently need the COVID jab, and they won't get there with this sort of information that's coming out. And my doctors were less than helpful. So really, Lady Mayor, something needs doing about this. We need to get the message out where these temporary jab centres are going to be, and which centres are actually doing the jab without people having to have an appointment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Callow. Any further questions? Page 19. Okay, Councillor O'Hara.
Oh, there it's on. Right. I'd like to agree with Councillor Callow because I, as you know, I'm involved with Friends of the South Station. I was there today. And people were ringing the number up and getting to the point where they were getting an answer and then the phone was going dead. There were at least a dozen people turned up and didn't know what they were doing or where it was going. Now, I'm down there on a regular basis, and until they put this fancy new multi-purpose cabin up, they were there practically all the time. So I think it is important that we ask the question of why. I mean, I think I have the same doctor as you, and they are a bit hopeless at the minute. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Councillor O'Hara. Councillor Burdett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's just the final paragraph on page 19, looking for some kind of clarity about the where the actions that are being taken to address the increasing uptake of the COVID vaccine in areas of the lowest uptake. So just a point of clarity there, please. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions on 19? Okay, page 20.
Councillor Scott and Councillor Williams.
Okay, Councillor Scott first, sorry. Yeah, Councillor.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. Yeah, it's in relation to, well, not just the examination results. I know that they won't be published until January, is it? And but they say that it's looking good on an upward trend. For those, that might be the case for some schools, but could we have the data? If you probably know that every school was given money to like catch up because of the COVID situation, and what that money was focused on. You know, if the schools that have got poor results, then what did they spend that money on that they were given? Thank you.
Councillor Clapham, and then, sorry, yeah, I've got you, Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I've got 3 items on page 20, so I'll start with the one that Rick's just covered. As far as A-level, BTEC and O-level results at Blackpool 6, they were excellent. And it is good to read that the results across Blackpool have improved. This has been the hardest time for teachers and pupils to be educated. It shows the resolve they had to study against all odds, and it's been a job well done. I mean, the amount of closures they've had, lack of staff, trying to learn how to learn virtually, it's been awful. And we've come through it. We should improve even further next year. I'm very confident in that. And that's that item. Can I speak on the next one?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll go back up the page to youth services with the creation of the small youth service team. I do welcome that. That is fantastic. Youth engagement is essential to develop young people into good citizens. Most of the young people do develop to make the best of their opportunities, but sadly we don't hear much about them. We always hear about the obverse side and everything that goes wrong, but this service will certainly help the disaffected to join in and become good citizens, so I love that. Can I go down the page to SEND? Down at the bottom, and then it goes over to page 21. SEND pupils have increased again this year. I was at a standards meeting last night for about 2.5 hours at the sixth form, and we went through the figures, even though the population into lower six has actually gone down, the SEND pupils have gone up. And so SEND, certainly in this town, is a very, very important part of the education recovery. At Blackpool 6, they actually have personal mentors for every child or pupil or student even that comes into the sixth form. So they've got someone from day one to relate to. It's similar to what Councillor Williams has been on about putting social workers into school and people to look into mental capacity all round. It's a fantastic thing if you've got the money and the resolve to put people in there to support these pupils. The other good thing about the sixth form is they get all the information from Blackpool schools and beyond on what problems the child may have, whether it be mental, physical or a combination, or even abuse at home. There's a whole range of things. Very, very complicated system. And to see that Charlotte Barron is now going to be our mentor in this particular area, I wish her all the best, because it is a tremendously hard job to do. And at long last, SEND is not just a subject which is added on. It's there at the forefront of education, which is excellent. As my wife says, once a teacher, always a teacher, so I'll shut up.
Thank you, Councillor Caplan. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. My subject, of course, on here is youth services, and I can't tell you how delighted I was to read the review when it came through and what the council are doing in regard to that. I spend quite a bit of time at the Boys and Girls Clubs, one in Blunderick, and of course there's one on Mere Side. And to see those kids in there, and there could be up to 200 on some nights, enjoying themselves and leading wholesome and fulfilling engagement is absolutely marvellous. And I'd be very interested to find out who we've got on this small team and where they're coming from and who's choosing them, etc. And I wish them all the success in the world, because it's something that's dear to me and I think it's important for the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions? Page 20. Page 21. Yep. 22. Sorry.
I do beg your pardon. Adult social care services overview. We're finding it difficult to employ qualified social workers. I just wanted to know, is that a national situation or is it just local? I'm presuming it's national. And what are the reasons behind it? Do we not have enough qualified social workers, or are there different pay rates in different authorities? And are we competing in the pay market for that? Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Scott.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's on the same subject. I was led to believe that we'd sort of like overcome the shortages by talking to staff to try and retain staff, what they would like. Would they like flexible working hours, you know, if they've got kids at school, etc., etc. And we did have a couple of agency staff who actually came over to work for the council, which is normally they normally jump the other way because of more money. Is there anything else that we can do, obviously bar flexible working hours, and to get these people, to get the staff, without obviously, you know, with safeguarding issues, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, 21. Don't know what 22. Page 22. Questions. Councillor Solomon.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. I need first to make a couple of observations before I come to my questions, so please bear with me. Currently, there are over 80 private beds operated by children's homes providers in this town, 25% of which are occupied by Blackpool children. One private provider has pretty much half of the 80 private beds that are available to children in Blackpool. They boast of a national revenue stream of over £850 million per year, much of which I'm sure is being used to extend their portfolio and developments of their services in the Middle East at the cost of children from this country. Costs of up to £12,000 per week per placement are being made, not necessarily by ourselves, but by other local authorities that are importing these children, very challenging, very vulnerable young people into town who have the most complex and challenging behaviours, impacts on all our services, police, health, education. I've mentioned this a million times before. So really, when I come to the question is, are there any long, short or medium-term strategies that we are going to be able to use to discourage other local authorities from importing the most challenging children into an area where we aren't meeting our own children's needs? And referring back to the leader mentioning Josh McAllister's report and the government having to get to grips with this, we all have our place and we all have our duty to care for the most vulnerable children in this society. And a country, a nation, whoever, will always be judged by the way they look after our young people. We are failing our young people. This is a national problem, but we all have our part to play. But I think we really do need to get to grips with our children being disadvantaged further than is absolutely necessary by the importation of the most challenging children into this local authority. Thank you, Lady Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Williams.
Lady Mayor, it's first and second question.
Okay. Councillor Danny Scott.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Halfway down, it says number of children in public care continues to fall. That's a great headline, and it states that the number of children in care through the summer of 2022 now stands at 575 as at the end of September. Now, I'm not sure when this was written, but you may be aware there's not the end of September yet, please. And it does state various reasons why: lower number of children entering care, positive outcomes at the conclusion of court proceedings, etc. Is it possible if you could give me the up-to-date numbers of the children in care in Blackpool at this moment in time? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, any further on 22? Councillor Burdess.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's just really to, I suppose, heap praise in a sense. We all know, any educators know, I think any parents know, that the classroom environment is not the right place for every pupil, every student. And it's good to see that the Chefs Academy is showing such success. And I wonder if there's any plans to expand the provision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, ma'am.
Any further questions on 22? 23? Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you. The Stop Smoking services are a noble cause, but somewhat hypocritical when Labour councillors have been seen smoking outside the town hall. Criticisms have been made by the public for smoking at public events, and on the Children and Young People's Scrutiny Committee promoting the legalisation of cannabis. I was wondering if the Labour group intend to practice what they preach and lead by example by committing to all quitting smoking.
Thank you. Where to go with that one? Thank you very much, Councillor Mitchell. Okay. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, on the subject of the dreaded weed again, that is tobacco. Being an ex-smoker myself, I thoroughly, agree. I'm not condoning smoking in any way, but there's been a lot of publicity thrown at smoking and at the younger generation as well, and I think we've come on leaps and bounds. You look at the figures. But smoking cigarettes doesn't cause people to break into houses, go out pilfering left, right and centre. So maybe we should be focusing more on drug addiction. I know tobacco is a drug, but the serious that are causing a lot of people, harm in the community, and a lot of woe because of this drug addiction. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stansfield.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. It's how do you define what area to stop smoking? In my generation, it was mainly just cigarettes. We've now got the added problems with narcotics and vapes. Now, as we all know, we don't know what long-term damage vaping can do. Is this policy going to try to quit or to help some of these young people quit what they're doing or stop doing what they're doing? It is rife in our schools, and I mean rife. I would say 75% of students in school are using vapes. Now this, I'm not saying it will, but it's quite likely to lead on to other things, whether it be tobacco or onto cannabis or anything else. It needs to be looked at in the same manner and also try to stop it. Thank you, Lady Mayor.
Thank you. Any further questions on page 23? 24? Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. It's the Vital Line service. It does a fantastic job, but with BT going to digital, what steps are in place for this to be changed to digital services? Because some people in Blackpool have gone to digital and they can't use this service now. And I think that we should be one step ahead, because in a few years, I think it's 2 years, we're not going to have BT on the lines or anything like that. It's all going to be digital. So what is going to be in place for people now that have changed over to digital? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further on 24? Okay. 25. Page 25, anybody? Okay. General questions? Okay. Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. I'll take the couple of points that were raised on my portfolio. Yeah, Councillor Sloan, I agree. I really don't like the number of children out of town being sent up to Blackpool to our homes. And you may recall there was a BBC documentary a couple of months ago looking at that exact same issue. And it is wrong, basically. And I did speak to our DCS on this at the time. Now, as I understand it, this was more of a kind of a planning issue rather than a children's social care issue. However, I will get a proper response to you on that. So is that okay? Okay. Councillor Scott, number of looked after children, got an email this afternoon, 577. So it has gone up to since that report, but that is where it is now. Yep.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay. Councillor Callow, I'm being made aware of this evening by Councillor O'Hara, so I will be looking into it. But I do take your point about the communications for elderly people, so I'll deal with that tomorrow if I can, and then I'll pass on the information about the pub at South Shore and what details I find out. But we do have our vaccine bus, and relating to your point as well, Councillor Burdes, that vaccine bus has given over 27,000 vaccinations since it started, and it does focus on our inner wards and those hard-to-reach communities, Councillor Burdes, and the people are still coming forward for their first and second doses as well. And you can get your COVID booster and your flu jab both at the same time, so one in each arm on the vaccine bus. But we'll sort the comms out so it's much better for the elder people. Councillor Williams, yes, shortage of social workers, that is a national issue. Every local authority with responsibility is experiencing that issue, unfortunately. Councillor Scott, you were talking about recruitment and retention. We have got flexible working hours, we've got the Health and Social Care Academy, we've got links with DWP, the Blackpool Football Club, we're paying the real living wage, we've got rolling recruitment adverts, and we've got recruitment events across the town. It is challenging, it's a national issue, not just a Blackpool issue, but it's extremely challenging when you can go and work in a supermarket and get more money. Councillor Mitchell, councillors smoking outside buildings. Yeah, it's a disgusting habit. I've given it up many years ago. I will tell them off. They're very naughty, and I will get them told. And I will point them in the right direction of the community non-stop smoking service. Councillor Scott, you were talking about focusing on drug addiction instead of smoking. Actually, we're focusing on both because we've got Project Header and Changing Futures as well, which focuses on the addiction and substance misuse. Councillor Stansfield, e-cigarettes, yeah, there's a lot of evidence about young people and the usage of that. It is a focus of tobacco-free Lancashire, so we're working on that. And enforcement do visit the vape shops in Blackpool, and I've seen young people outside vape shops and reported it to enforcement. So they will do test purchases, that's the word. And Councillor Coleman, can I get a response to that for you? Because I have no answer. Okay, thank you. I think that's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just confuse everybody by popping up and talking about schools and send, if that's okay. So my title changed over the summer, and I now have schools and special educational needs and disabilities in my portfolio. So, but firstly, I'm just going to go to Councillor Robertson about beggars. I do have homelessness as part of my portfolio. A lot of the time, these people aren't actually homeless. So I'm going to pass that on to the person in charge of enforcement. Okay. Councillor Scott, exam results. Yes, about catch-up money. I appreciate that lots of schools were given an amount of money. The difficulty being, because they are academies, I'm not sure if we can ask that question, but I'll certainly find out for you. And if I get you any information, we'll get it to you. Councillor Clapham, results. I've actually seen the results, apart from one school that we're waiting for on the day. And I am extraordinarily pleased and proud of these young people. Like you say, they have had such a difficult time the past couple of years, learning virtually, being in school, not being in school. It must have been incredibly hard. And given the results that I have seen, they have done themselves proud. They really have. Obviously, we do want to keep going, and some schools have done better than others, as you would imagine. So I think a piece of work that we need to do is to identify the schools that aren't doing as well as others and see what we can learn from them, see if there's anything we can do to bring the results up all over town. Obviously, want further improvement, and maybe now that I'm in charge of schools, there will be. Who knows? Youth services team. You never hear about the good kids, do you? Somebody said that. You never hear about the good kids, and I think that's wrong. We put a lot of diversionary activities on for kids that are always getting in a bit of bother. But the good kids are overlooked. So this youth services team, the question was asked about who will be part of that. We're going out to advert for the head of service fairly shortly, if it's not already done so. And that person will be involved in recruiting the people that sit underneath. But we do have a couple of very interesting people on the books already, so who knows. And going back to SEND, yeah, pupil numbers are increasing, but that's because, you know, we're getting a little bit better about identifying kids that might have an issue. And obviously, if they're given a special plan, it helps them through their school years. And also, I don't know if you've seen, but High Furlong School is actually having an extension. It's just going to plan now, which will have a hydrotherapy pool as well. And I've not had the pleasure of meeting Charlotte yet, but I'm looking forward to it because I've heard a lot of good things about her. And Councillor Burdess, the Chefs Academy. Well, if it was up to Derek, who runs the Chefs Academy, we'd have one in every school. But I think we need to walk before we can run. 18 is a really good number. We would like to trial it across other places across Blackpool, maybe at the pupil referral unit, etc. But I'm trying to focus, because we're doing so well with the Chefs Academy, and we do have a lot of kids that are never going to get fantastic exam results, you know. We need to look at vocational paths for them. So we're looking into building and construction and all that kind of stuff at the moment. So doing a bit of work around that. But yeah, the Chefs Academy will expand, and if no one knows, they now do the catering for this building as well, does the Chefs Academy. So when you're eating a lovely wedge, somebody made it for you. They're absolutely great kids. I had the pleasure of meeting them last year, maybe slightly earlier, can't remember. And they're all lovely. And I'm looking forward to meeting the new intake as well. I think that's it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mike.
Okay, places portfolio, and I believe it's Councillor Brooks to present.
When Councillor Smith stopped messing with your buttons. I'm pleased to present the place portfolio on behalf of myself and my colleagues. As always, I'll answer questions on my portfolio responsibilities at the end, and I'm sure my colleagues will as well. I just wanted to make one or two comments before I sit down, because we don't often get a chance to thank our officers and staff enough for their efforts on behalf of us all. So it's great to see within the documents that we've all got tonight the recognition achieved for all concerned by awards from our peers in local government. Congratulations are due for the award recognising our response to the climate emergency, where we're in the top 3 councils in the country for our leadership locally on this issue and for the range of measures already put in place. The judges were particularly impressed with the fact that measures have been tailored to fit the local community. The eco-coaching project on Grange Park being a good example of this. In a similar vein, the awards to our housing teams are really special. The Northern Housing Awards are like the Oscars of housing, so to come away with 3 awards, including Council of the Year, represents a massive success and is recognition of the progress we're making on housing in Blackpool. On that, the final units of the Troutbeck development have now been handed over from the contractor, and tenants are already identified and moving in. Work will continue on site to make sure that the landscaping and highways are finished properly before final sign-off of the project. Arrangements are also in place to continue to monitor the development and ensure any snags are addressed quickly. Development of Grange Park is progressing well, with work now beginning on phase 2 of the project. The end project of this development will provide 131 new homes for affordable rent, comprised of 2 to 6 bedroom houses, as well as much needed sheltered accommodation. We're actually very pleased to announce that the government has recognised our efforts so far in tackling road providers of supported housing in Blackpool by awarding us a share of the government's £20 million supported housing improvement programme. This must form part of our ongoing resolve, as has already been alluded to tonight, to break the business model sold to out-of-town investors based on the yield of profit that can be achieved by exploiting the payment of higher rate housing allowance for vulnerable individuals while providing little or no support to those individuals. The continued support of the government in our drive to regulate the standards and volume of supported accommodation in Blackpool is most welcome. Since this report was prepared for tonight's meeting, I also wanted to inform members of a cost of living workshop that was recently organised for council partners, including charities, faith and third sector organisations. The event was held at Salvation Army Citadel and Rakes Parade, and it was absolutely packed out with delegates from organisations determined to offer assistance to Blackpool residents during the cost of living crisis that's actually already here for many and will no doubt deepen over the coming months. At that event, there was a recognition that the financial crisis and all it brings requires a response similar to that seen during the pandemic in Blackpool. There's no pot of gold coming over the hill from either central or local government, so we need to pool our collective efforts and resources to help those most in need in our community. There was agreement to continue such events to ensure that everyone is able to contribute, and we can once again pull together as a community to look after each other. The start point to this is ensuring that our people are aware that what assistance is currently available to them. The council teams have been working on this already, and anybody visit.
Brooks, I do have to cut you off.
I think this last bit is important, Madam Mayor. The council teams have been working on this already, and anybody visiting the council website cost of living page can quickly see what help is available. The plan is to distribute this information across communities via GP surgeries, post offices and community centres, etc. So those who don't or can't access the internet aren't disadvantaged. I'm confident Blackpool residents will once again pull together and look after each other as we always do.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Okay. Questions on page 27. 28. Councillor Clapper.
Sorry to be again. It's the youth at the top of the page. Another good initiative. I won't spend much time on it at all. sorry, I'm not going to repeat it, I'm sure you've heard me, is that anyone who is disaffected within the scheme can go back into the scheme again and recover the situation. So it's excellent, it's open-ended, it's doing a good job and to be commended. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Item 6, the multiversity. It's moving from Park Road. This is very welcome, but have we any idea what we're going to do with the redundant building there on Park Road? Is it going to be demolished and houses built, or are we going to use it for something else? Could you tell me if we've got any plans? It would be very sad, you know, if it just sat there empty for quite some time when it could be used for something. Thank you.
Councillor Callow. Any further on 28? Okay, page 29. Page 30. Okay, Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, the item on the coastal protection scheme. I mean, we all know the well-documented failings of what happened at Anchor Zone. And I was just looking at, we'll be using the framework, working collaboratively with the EA and DEFRA commercial team to deliver the project, strengthening the contract through previous learning. Well, I would imagine that the Environmental Agency and DEFRA were involved in the last project, but my question would be, what quality assurance have we got put in place to see that this doesn't happen again? Have we got the resource? Have we got the know-how? Are we paying consultants to check the consistency of the concrete before it's set, etc., so we don't fall into the same trap again as in Anchor Zone? Thank you.
Councillor Clapham.
Thank you. I think Rick's covered all of my points, but I was going to say that Councillor Wilshaw and myself went to all the presentations and voted on the final application there. But we were also mindful about what happened in Anchor Zone, so it really is a matter that there should be excellent supervision, monitoring at every stage to try and make sure those mistakes made in Anchor Zone are not repeated with this new development. Thank you.
Councillor Callow.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Coast Protection Scheme, which we all know is absolutely vital to a place like Blackpool. But myself and other councillors have had numerous complaints about the pound there that the builders used at the junction of the Promenade and Prince's Way. It's an absolute eyesore. We're all getting numerous complaints from the general public, from not just from Anchor's Home Ward and Norbreck, but from other wards. It's just spoiling the whole appearance of that area. And all we seem to get is some excuse that it's all going to be tidied up and it's all going to look nice. Well, that isn't good enough. We want something doing now. I know that we've got officers that have been working very hard on this scheme, but I do think, Madam Mayor, that we need to put our foot down as a council and say enough is enough. We've had that eyesore there now for years and years, and the residents in the area think the local councillors are doing nothing at all about it. But it's like banging your head against a brick wall. And really, I think we need some results, and we need them very, very quickly. It needs tidying up. We need proper screening, something similar to that we had in Talbot Square when people, when Yates's was burnt down. We did have some good hoardings there. The council were criticised because it cost about £20,000, but it wasn't an eyesore, and it was very interesting for people to look at all the illustrations on it. So, Madam Mayor, I really do think it's time that something was done about that area quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Callow. Any further on page 30? Page 31? Page 32? Okay, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Beehives and Revo Community Garden. I thought this was a great idea. I didn't know they were happening. Can we have them up in Anchor's Home as well, please? And the other question would be, what do we do with the honey? Thank you.
Okay, any further on page 32, Councillor Scott?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, it's just a thank you to everybody involved with Stanley Park. I think we'll all agree it's one of the jewels in the crown of Blackpool, if not the jewel. And everybody from Envenco, the friends, everybody, what a superb effort. Thank you.
Okay, any further on 32? Okay. 33? Following on, really? No. Okay, any general questions? Okay, Councillor Mrs Scott.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Motor scooters. If I want to buy a motor scooter and ride it on the road, I have to do compulsory basic training and follow the highway code. In fact, I wouldn't have to do the CBT because I've got a full motorbike licence, but that is what I would need. I'd also have to wear a helmet. I'd have to make sure the vehicle was insured, roadworthy, MOT'd, would need lights, etc. However, e-scooters now seem to be riding on our roads, willy-nilly, young people riding them, usually wearing hoodies, I guess, so they can't be identified. The riding of e-scooters is actually illegal on a public road. They're a problem all over the town. It's already been referred to previously in this chamber of the problem they are on the promenade. They are in pedestrianised areas within the town, Burley Street for one. So I'd like to know what the council is doing in conjunction with the police to try to stop this before there is a serious accident. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any further general questions? Okay, Councillor Brooks.
Well, just quickly, the last point is someone who's been overtaken on his park drive by an electric bike.
Councillor Brooks, your microphone.
Yeah, I mean, not a lot basically because we can't catch them. The police are trying their best, and when they see them, they are actually confiscating them and disposing of them. But unless the bobby can actually catch somebody on the bike, on the scooter, there's not a lot we can do. And you're right, it is illegal. It's a pain in the backside for everybody, as are electric bikes when you're getting overtaken on East Park Drive. So we're on it, but clearly the lack of police officers is a hindrance.
Okay. Who's responding to some of the questions then? Councillor Hugo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay, so coastal defence schemes. This seems to be a popular topic at every full council, so I absolutely want to reiterate and reassure you, being the operative, whatever it is, Don would know, pronoun or whatever, absolutely lessons learned. If there are any lessons to be learned, we will be taking that forward. I wouldn't really consider it to be a failure though, Councillor Scott. I live in Anchor's Home and we haven't flooded. The sea defences are doing their job. There might be hiccups, there might be things that we've had to look into. We're still in discussions of a contractual nature, and therefore it's potentially not appropriate to go into the details, the finer details, in a forum like this tonight. But please be assured that we are working with the Environment Agency and taking into account any learning in the new contract. Today I've spent a good 2 or 3 hours in Blackburn at the Regional Flood and Coastal Committee. We're going to West Kirby in a couple of weeks, and we talk to all the senior people and share good practice and everything that we can do to make sure we have the best for the 61 million that we've been given will be undertaken. So, yeah, please be reassured. Councillor Clapham, that will include excellent supervision and monitoring. Councillor Callow, the compound, yes, the ongoing eyesore. I like the idea about screening and having that illustrated. We'll take that forward and appreciate that you want to see something done about this sooner rather than later. So that, I think, is covering the coastal section. Councillor Williams, honey? As in the bees, honey. I really don't know, so we need to find out what we do with that. And Councillor Rick Scott, absolutely Stanley Park, what fantastic news. And not only for winning the award for the park, but also to the volunteers for getting the MBE there. If there's time, I would just like to also refer to some questions earlier around hydrogen and so on. And things from Councillor Galley and Councillor Williams about renewable energy and wind energy. And you talked about opportunities. Well, you'll be aware, I'm sure, that when there's opportunities, we can do something called a SWOT exercise. So nothing is just that simple. We have to look at the strengths, weaknesses, the opportunities and the threats. And with the wind, it can be quite complicated with the wind turbines and planning permission and living in such a built-up area. There are issues. However, I think there's lots of innovation. There is opportunity to lead on this. And there are exciting things in the pipeline nationally around having wind turbines without sails, which will be much more suitable. Hydrogen, it's not just that simple. I wish it was. And if you would be able to just take a minute to Google issues with hydrogen, there's lots and lots of complications. Absolutely. So again, the team, we've got expert people working within Blackpool Council now, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that we can lead on this agenda. Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just going to go back to the previous questions to the leader earlier on, which I didn't quite answer, which could help with some of the answers to the questions regarding, which was raised earlier on. I can't remember who asked the question. I think it's Councillor Walsh regarding the Hounds Hill. The graffiti has been removed off that door, and the broker window on there is being dealt with the insurance company because it cost £8,000 to replace that glass. And I'd rather the insurance company pay for it than the taxpayers of Blackpool. Regarding your comments regarding the Flatiron building in New York, fantastic building. I've been there, I stood next to it. It's a great building, 22nd Street. I can see your parallels between the Stanley buildings and that being a triangular shape. But what you said regarding the funding is the project's about 6.8 million, funded by the town's deal of 4.5 through grant. The other bit of the money is through potential borrowing. So our business case to government was to support what the outcomes from the business case to go there, whoever was one who got the funding in the first place. So there is a business plan behind that. At the moment, the FY Creative is actually 100% full. There's no capacity, so we have a shortage of capacity in the town centre. So we are building a first-class office space for small business startups and support in the town centre. So when it's complete, it'd be an excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that. Regarding the question regarding the Youth Hub, to Councillor Clapham, it passed our matrix certification with flying colours, and thank you for your support. We have funding from the community river funds and the town deal to get it off the ground. It's an excellent service for the youth of today to get them into employment, into jobs. So it's working well, and we're going to do as much as we can to get people back into full-time employment where we can. And one final question. The multiversity and the land that we're developing, we're going to move the campus out there into the new campus. It belongs to the college. I know there's a nice building on Palatine Road. It'd be nice if that was apartments or something, or business use or something. So, but I'm not sure what they're going to do. It doesn't belong to us, but I'd like to see the college. So the college owns it. So they'd be responsible for any planning deals or whatever's done on that use. So I like to see good quality housing, and I'd like to see that nice building on Palatine Road come into real use. But yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I think is that all the questions answered on that portfolio. Can I just ask, can we just have a 5-minute comfort break? If we can be back just after 2:15, just literally 5 minutes. We just... all suitably refreshed. Okay, and we now come to item, what is it? Six. It's combined fire authority representatives, and that's presented by Councillor Williams, I believe.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. Delighted to present this report. There haven't been meetings for some time with the Fire Authority. One of the main issues that the Fire Authority are working through, one is the white paper, which is the reforms that are changing into the fire service, and the other is with the unions in regard to pensions, pensionable allowances and pensionable pay. Hopefully that's going to be resolved in the next few weeks, but at the moment there's a bit of an impasse. So that's what we're doing at the moment. Of course, the cost in resources, which I'm the chairman of, the cost of materials and the cost of running the fire service is combined with the cost of living rise, especially fuel. And the new Director of Transport is looking very seriously at hydrogen. Because if we start using electric vehicles to attend fires, it's going to be extremely difficult. A, because of the power and the necessity to pump water from these vehicles, these tenders. But the good news is, of course, as is always, Lancashire Combined Fire Authority have got the highest marks in terms of inspection. They're rated as excellent, and that's the way they'll stay. And I'm very proud of the work all the fire officers do and the members of the CFA. Thank you, Lady Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Hugo, Councillor Jackson, do you want to say anything? You're okay, thank you. So if we go through the report page by page, page 35, any questions, comments? Okay. Page 36. Okay. Any general questions on the report? Okay. Okay. Councillor Scott.
Just a quick question on the stats on arson, and have the figures gone down for around in Blackpool, or what was it like when not just children, but you know, they had a lot of time on their hands, etc. We know in the past we've had the Great Devonshire Road School burnt down, I know it was some time ago, but it would be interesting to know what the stats are on, locally. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. We have a full CFA meeting next week on Monday, and those stats and the figures in regard to the delivery of fires will be known on that day.
Okay. Any further questions? Any further response, Councillor Hugo, Councillor Jackson? Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Williams. Okay, item 7, the appointment of committees. Councillor Williams to propose.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, happy to move the proposed report. Thank you.
Okay. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Okay. Any other councillors wishing to speak? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Lady Mayor. The mathematics of committees, especially when the council is under no overall control, baffles me. I'm not sure how we rely on Mr. Towers to give us the figures and the numbers. We've lost two seats, and I know that Labour have lost some of theirs as well. But it just seems strange that in some areas we have Labour chairs and Labour vice chairs. And with a council that has no overall control, I'm just curious as to why some other members from other political parties in this room have not had the chairs. Mark has explained it to me and he's sent me all the figures and details, but I still don't understand it, and talking to a colleague, neither do they. But I think we're prepared to vote this through on the condition that we can get further advice and review, because as I keep saying, no overall control. And tonight, for instance, we could be very well looking at beating Labour in a vote against this, but we're not going to do it. No, you've got 2 votes with the mayor. It's as simple as that. So, yeah, we'll vote it through, but we reserve the right to take further advice and to see if we can have more parity in this no overall control.
Okay. Any further speakers? Right.
Mayor, could I?
Sorry, Mr.
Just a point of clarification. The report that's put before you, the calculations are done in line with the Local Government Housing Act 1989. The appointment of chairs and vice chairs is a recommendation from the leader. That is not something that I put forward. So the calculations and the committee makeup has got to be balanced in respect of the three groups that are on the council, and that's explained in Appendix 7A. So the calculations are in line with the political balance regulations. The appointment of positions is purely a vote for council.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, I agree with that, Mark. You're absolutely right in your calculations, I'm sure. I just still don't understand them. So if it is the leader's decision, may I ask the leader if she'd consider more parity in terms of chairs and vice chairs among councillors? If we're all working together, let's work together.
Okay, I'm sure Councillor Williams will respond in time. Councillor Bradley Mitchell.
Thank you. Political reviews seem quite regular, and the Labour group continues to get smaller. It brings to mind something similar to the famous Henry VIII rhyme: ostracised, suspended, quit; ostracised, suspended, jumped ship. We now have a situation with a leader without an overall majority, who stated she is grateful for additional support from the National Labour Party, being propped up by a number of former Labour councillors who have quit or been suspended from the group.
Councillor Mitchell, that isn't relevant to the...
I think 5.2 says that a Labour councillor has quit the group. That's relevant to that, surely.
Right, thank you. That wasn't relevant to the debate.
To a Labour councillor quitting the group?
No, what you said before.
Which
Okay.
part?
Councillor Martin Mitchell.
Which part's not relevant? Sorry.
The part that you said before about when you're talking about another councillor and it wasn't relevant to the debate. Okay, thank you. Councillor Martin Mitchell.
Thank you very much. I think Mr Townsend's explained the position very clearly. It's up to the council to decide. The practice of a party without a majority having all the chairs or all the chairs but one, to me, has no precedent and no rationale. And of course, we do know 19 out of 41 is not a majority. With regard to the two positions in question, the chairs of appeals and planning, I think it's particularly important that they are not party political and that they should not be appointed on a party political basis. I'm not convinced these appointments are in the best interest of the council.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Any further speakers on Councillor Coleman?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could we just have a point of information, please? Should the vote go against the leading group, the ruling group, where do we go from there, please, if Mr Towers could advise us? Thank you. Madam Mayor, I can certainly answer that from a technical perspective. If there is no decision, the current political balance situation, the appointments stay as the status quo. If the vote goes against, there could always be another motion that's moved within the meeting itself.
Okay, thank you. Any further speakers? Councillor Williams, right to reply.
Councillor Williams, yes, we can have conversations around it, and there is going to be the review, independent review of the scrutiny committee, so we can tie that in with those discussions. Councillor Mitchell, still more councillors than the opposition, and an interesting fact for you, when you start talking about making the reasons for our loss of numbers, that the 2/3 of all Conservative councillors who faced allegations of racist allegations remain entirely in place. Take from that what you will. Councillor Mitchell didn't seem to bother you previously, and I'm sorry around regard the chairs, and I'll say I'll have those conversations with Councillor Williams, and Councillor Coleman, your questions and answers.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Shall we move to the vote? All those in favour? Okay, and those against?
That's 19 for the motion, 17 against. Any abstentions? I don't know. Abstentions?
Abstentions. Any abstentions to the motion?
Okay. Yes, the vote is carried.
The vote is carried then. Thank you. Right, thank you. Can we carry on with the business? Okay, and last item of the evening is the notice of motion. Excuse me. Can we get on, please? Okay, item 8, the notice of motion in the name of Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. Recently, I've had conversations with a few taxi operator directors of companies. And of course, we all know they wanted to increase the fares because of the cost of living, because of the cost of fuel. And you can understand the situation that they're in. They were allowed a small increase, a small percentage. But we need to get people moving, and Blackpool taxis are well supported. But with the cost of fuel and some of the road closures that are happening within the town centre, they're finding it difficult. Hackney cars can advertise on the side of their cars or on the back. And I've noticed in the countries I've visited that most taxis, just about every taxi, carries an advert, and they're very tastefully done. For instance, in Albia, in Spain, the taxi companies there are sponsored by a local estate agent, if you like, a property company, and they look very uniform. I've no idea as to how much money can be charged for these adverts, but my suggestion is that the chief exec sit down with the main operators and talk about advertising on the cars with an agreed content. And by using a professional marketeer and advertising agency to get the best deals possible. And then it's up to the taxi owners or the operators to find out a way of diverting that downwards into their drivers' pay packets. It's going to help them. It doesn't make any difference to what we believe in is our taxis should look like. We had a uniform regulation which has never been enforced. It's never been regulated. We still have drivers in football shirts and jeans and shorts. But on the whole, they do an excellent service for Blackpool. And if you look at public protection, you'll see we're getting less and less taxi drivers through, which is a really good sign. I just think it'll help local businesses because they'll be able to advertise on cars that drive all over the Fylde. And it'll help the drivers and the taxi owners to earn a little bit more revenue so they can pass those savings on to their customers. Thank you, Lady Mayor.
Councillor Clapham to second.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know it's getting late. The clock isn't right. It's not been right for ages, but I won't want to keep you for very much longer. You've worked hard tonight. In terms of the notice of motion, I fully support the initiative to allow private hires to advertise as well as Hackney if our officers can bring up some agreement that will cover both of those. I mean, to me, it's an anomaly that private hires can't have adverts on their vehicles. We have them on the buses, we have them on the trams, but of course they're limited in terms of where they go. But private hires and Hackney carriages go all over every nook and cranny in Blackpool. And if they can get some revenue through the private hire, then it's good for them, it's good for the people who invest in the adverts, and I can't see what detriment it would be to the service. I think it would enhance it. So I fully second and support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Clapham. Any further speakers? Councillor Brooks and Councillor... Do you want to... Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for submitting the motion tonight, as it gives us all a chance to express our gratitude for the role that cabbies and the operators played during the pandemic, where the operators are key workers. We don't often get a chance to express those thanks. Council's current policy in relation to advertising permits advertising on bombers, as we call them, on the Hackneys, but we don't allow advertising of a sexual nature, promoting alcohol, cigarettes, tobacco, or gambling or forms of gambling. For private hire vehicles, all we'll allow is certain signage, the company logos, the council logo identifying the vehicle as a private hire vehicle that can only be pre-booked, the taxi licence itself, and the no smoking signage. Legally, advertising can be allowed. That's been checked out and proved, but the law says that a local authority should only licence a vehicle as a private hire if they're satisfied it's not of such design and appearance as to lead any person to believe that this vehicle is a Hackney carriage. It's important that members of the public are able to distinguish a Hackney carriage and private hire vehicle to save any conflict with customers and drivers and between Hackney and private hire vehicle taxi drivers. I'm going to ask the Council to reject the motion for a number of reasons. The reasoning behind the current policy is because we actually licence a mixed fleet of private hire vehicles and bombers across both Hackney carriages and the private companies. So you're actually going to create confusion as to who's a Hackney and who's a private hire vehicle. It's correct that the Hackney carriage and private hire trades have faced cost challenges, especially through rising fuel costs. We've supported the trade by the introduction of a system of fare surcharges dependent on the cost of a price of a litre of fuel on a given week. The private hire trade are also free to set their own tariff for journeys and could set similar tariffs should they so wish to bring them into line with the Hackney carriages. The current system of advertising on Hackney carriages appears to be working well, and there's actually no appetite within the trade for any change of policy. The motion suggests a meeting to discuss the viability of this enhanced advertising programme and talks about sharing the revenue. Actually, that's not legally possible. The contract for any advertising will be between the vehicle licence holder and the advertiser, not the owners of the firms. The council would not have any control whatsoever over the revenue from the advertising. Whilst the council can attach conditions to vehicle licences, providing their licence within Blackpool and subject to local licensing conditions, conditions have to be reasonably necessary. A condition specifying advertising agencies to be used or how the income is appropriated wouldn't be considered reasonably necessary. The motion calls for a meeting to be arranged with the taxi drivers. On the 15th of September, representatives of both Hackney and private hire trades, as part of the current consultation process on taxi policy, discussed this very proposal because it had appeared in the Gazette. The Hackney trade were against the proposal on the basis that it blurred the distinction between the two trades. 4 private hire companies were there, and they also objected to it on the basis that...
Councillor Box.
And they've already put it in writing, their objections to that.
Thank you. Councillor Scott. Councillor Scott. Did you indicate? No. Oh, did you not?
Councillor Stansfield.
Oh, it's Stansfield. Sorry. It's been a long night. Sorry, Councillor Stansfield.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can only say thank you for that clear as mud explanation of why you can and cannot advertise on Hackney carriages.
Councillor Stansfield.
The problem is, in Blackpool, we have bombers, we have saloons. There is a certain cab company which has all their saloons wrapped with advertising. Fair enough, it's for the same company that it actually drives for. But is this not in breach of your "it may confuse people" ideas? Because, to be honest with you, I don't see the difference between advertising by wrapping a car or wrapping a bomber or FX4 taxi as being any different. It signifies that the vehicle is a hire vehicle, taxi, whatever you want to refer it to as generally. There is no reason why, in this particular proposal, why advertising cannot be allowed. Whether they choose to take it up, that's up to them. But there is no reason why it can't be allowed to be put on any vehicle, providing it falls within the rules. And your rules are, at this moment in time, that it's only allowed on FX4 Hackney carriages. Now, a Hackney carriage licence, as we are most aware, is a licence for a vehicle. So therefore, a saloon vehicle that carries Hackney licence plates falls under the Hackney carriage area. It's not just an FX4 taxi. If it has Hackney carriage licence plates on, it is a Hackney carriage. I think your rules need to be reviewed, and this needs to be brought into it, that people are allowed to advertise on their vehicle.
Thank you, Councillor Stansfield. Councillor Hutton. Microphone, Councillor Hutton.
Don't usually need it. There's been a number of meetings held between officers of this council and various taxi cabs companies. The majority of them don't even want this. We've had an email from Bloater, and that's the Blackpool Licensed Hackney Carriage Association. They don't want it. So why are we actually discussing something that the majority of the people that it actually affects don't want it? There's only, from what I've been told, and I've got the emails here, there's only one company that wants it, and I won't name them, but they've got a connection with another company which does advertise on their vehicles, and they're not the best people to be working with. So why are we discussing it when the majority, I don't know where you got your information from, but I've had an email on the 18th of September from Bloater saying that they object to it. There was a meeting held with one of our officers on the 20th, and the majority of the people present there, and they were taxi operators, didn't want it. So I think that you need to go back and check on how many of these companies and the actual taxi drivers want this, and whether or not you're being sped a yarn by one particular company. No. So I would recommend that everybody turns this motion down and leaves us to deal with, and that's Councillor Brooks, myself, and the officers that know what they're doing, to actually sort this out, because that's a no-no. And by the way, when we agreed the increases or the supplements on the fares, I believe that the petrol price was 198p. It's now down to about 160p. So they've done quite well out of the increases that we allowed them. And they are supplements, because if we'd have increased the taxi fares, to actually bring it back down would have been an absolutely nightmare. That's why we said you can have the supplements, but you're not actually having a proper fare increase. And the Bloater and most of the taxi drivers accepted what we were doing because it gave them the extra revenue, but protected the council from a huge fare increase, and actually protected the residents and the visitors to Blackpool from being charged too much in the future. So just turn it down.
Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Isn't this about a free market? For years and years and years, we've got Blackpool Transport, as already has been stated. They've had delivery for years, where they can have trams, they can have buses, you can advertise what you want on them. Okay, not every taxi driver or Hackney Carriage might want to adopt this policy, but what it does do, it gives them the freedom to make that choice. Before you know it, you're creating a free market whereby hoteliers, business owners are actually competing to have advertising space and therefore driving up revenue. If you can do it for buses and taxis, and you've had that for Blackpool Transport for years, for trams, give these people a free option.
Any further speakers? Right to reply, Councillor Williams.
Thank you. I expected no less. I really expected no less. As for where I get my information from, you'd be surprised to know it's from the same source you claim you get yours from. And if you've had these meetings, then I'm sure there'll be minutes we can have a look at and we can see where they've written that they don't agree with this. Because the taxi drivers I spoke to, and it's not just one company, all think it's a good idea. It's how it's deployed. It's how it's put into practice. And that's why I've stated that the chief exec should sit down with them and see if the demand is there. Not because two councillors don't want it. Why? When it happens all over the world. It's all over every taxi in the world. Can you send them to me, please, councillor?
Right, not, excuse
No,
me.
no, I want the minutes.
Right, not across the chamber.
Excuse me. All right, I do beg your pardon, Lady Mayor. This takes place all over the world. But we can't do it. Because Councillor Brooks has got a rule book. And you have to stand by that rule book. Because it says so here. There are facts, aren't there? They're not common rules at all. See, you don't know what you're talking about. They are not common rules. Yeah, this gives an opportunity for Blackpool companies to earn a little bit more revenue. It gives an opportunity for Blackpool companies to advertise exactly what they're doing and gain more business. I've said the content should be agreed. It should be of a certain style. It should be of a certain nature. And in some cases, I think it would make the taxis look better. Because not all the taxis that you think are wonderful and marvellous running around Blackpool look that great. So I just don't see the point why you want to take money out of a taxi driver's pocket where he has the opportunity to make money. Well, of course you do. Of course you do. No, I tell you what, bloke, what they don't want the extra, how can I say, bureaucracy and decisions to make as how to divvy out the money. But that's what discussions are for. That's exactly what discussions are for. And that's what I'm asking for. But you've just passed it out of hand. It says here. Computer says no. Wake up. Come on, let's build some business. Let's be entrepreneurial. Instead of negative, which is all I get from this team over here. Just negative. We don't want it. Nobody else wants it either. Honestly, you should not. You should never have gone into power because you're doing nothing for the businesses in Blackpool. Or you can rub your heads and shake your heads and, oh dear, you don't do any better.
Right. Thank you. Right.
Comedy?
Right.
This is the comedians. This is where they got the idea from. You know some good jokes, Alan. So come on. All I'm asking in this motion is to start a discussion. But because it's our motion or my motion, you don't want it. Not invented here. So stop making up facts and issues that don't exist and start the discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Okay, I'm going to go to the vote now. Those for the motion, show your hands. 18. Those against?
Oh, that's if I was to be voting for you.
Okay, so the result of the motion was 18 for, excuse me. Thank you. Thank you. So the result of the motion was 18 for and 19 against, and the motion was lost. Okay. Thank you very much for your attendance tonight, and that concludes the business of the evening. All have a good night. Thank you. Bloody no. Do you want to sign this?